our 2 o'clock class. Hello, everyone. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Daniel. I'm coming to you live from my apartment in New York City. We're going to start our Sharpie tie-dye class in just a couple minutes. We're just going to allow everyone to come in. We actually just, Newell Brands, the parent company of Sharpie, is hosting 2 classes with Michaels today, and we just wrapped one up that was for our Prismacolor brand, and now you're going to be part of our Sharpie tie-dyeing. So I am so thrilled that you're here on a Monday, and I hope everyone had a really awesome weekend. I'm going to check one thing on the computer here, and then we're going to get started. And give a lowdown of what we're doing. Can I get some waves to say hello to everyone? Hello, hello. Hi. Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming. Again, everyone, my name is Jonathan Daniel. I am an employee at Newell Brands, which is the parent company of Sharpie Marker. Sharpie is a huge name, and it's one of my favorite products to be working on at Newell Brands. I work on the e-commerce team out of the Hoboken office, and every day I work with an awesome team, and we produce content for online, all digital content. So we take photo shoots, video shoots for products. If you're shopping online, especially at Michaels, and you see content, it's probably created by the team that I work on, so it's pretty exciting. As I mentioned, today we're here to do a Sharpie tie-dyeing class. Tie-dyeing, it's an expression of emotion and is a very colorful and expressive type of art. So I'm happy to be doing this with you. It's been popular since the 60s, 70s, and here we are today transforming it now with the use of Sharpies. But before we begin, just want to also let you guys know that over the next couple weeks, Sharpie and Michaels is partnering to host a variety of different classes. In addition to the class that you're on today, on the 21st of September, we're going to be doing a Sharpie ceramic decoration class. You won't want to miss that. On the 28th, if you're into hand lettering, that's one that you'll also want to attend. It was actually just brought up on the Prismacolor class, hand lettering, excuse me. This will be an exciting class that you won't want to miss. And then rounding things out at the beginning of October, on October 5th, I'm going to be back again doing ceramic watercolor coasters. We're going to be taking unfinished ceramic coasters. You can find these at Michaels. And we're going to be decorating them and making them really, really beautiful. So that's that. I'm surrounded by some of my favorite products from Sharpie today. I'm assuming many of you, since you're taking this class today, are lovers of Sharpies and probably have a big collection. I know I do. I store a bunch of mine in my Rubbermaid Brilliance plastic container here. So let's get started. What are you going to need? Of course, this is a class for Sharpie Marker, right? So you're going to need as many different colors of the rainbow from your, and beyond from your Sharpie collection. I have a plethora of them in front of me today. Bright colors are gonna work really best. You're going to also need some rubbing alcohol. This is what's going to be the magic potion to our tie-dye. You're going to need something to do the tie-dye on. For today's class, we're going to do a couple different examples of tie-dyeing with Sharpie markers. We're going to do one on a blank Tote canvas. Of course, this can be purchased at Michaels, where this one's from. We're also going to be doing some tie-dye on white t-shirts. If you don't have a white t-shirt, if you don't have a tote bag, that's okay. If you have a pair of white socks at home, you have a white polo that you may not be using anymore, or just something that you want to just change up a little bit, that's perfectly fine. I mean, so many of us are home nowadays that personally, I just like really casual, chill attire to wear around the house. So wearing something like this and not putting on my work clothes right now is fantastic. I also wanted to show you something that I recently did. These are a pair of white canvas shoes. I'll hold them up to the overhead camera here, that I completed with a variety of different Sharpie colors, blues, pinks, purples, and I'm calling these my galactic shoes. If I wanted to take it one step further, I could go into Michaels and probably purchase some fabric paint and put some really cool stars on top of them. But I think they're pretty neat as is. So if you even have a pair of white canvas shoes that you want to decorate today, let's do it. There are absolutely no rules in the classes that I teach. I led one a couple weeks ago for Elmer's, and this is a place where you can just let your emotions just come out and be free flowing. Like I said, there's no rules. So whatever colors you choose, that's up to you. As you want to get, let's do it. So let's start today by taking your either your canvas tote bag, your t-shirt, and let's do some tie-dyeing. I'm gonna put this example right here up in the front in case anyone wants to check it out. I'm gonna start with a t-shirt that I have, a very just blank white t-shirt. The first thing that we're going to do, and also, by the way, if there's any questions, please feel to write them into the chat. Moderator will send them over. Feel free to ask any questions about my job, what I do, what I like, Sharpie, try to answer them the best as possible for you guys. All right. So I'm just going to take and start with
Hey, Jonathan. We actually have one quick question. Somebody asked what to do if you don't have rubbing alcohol. Would you potentially recommend just drawing out your design and waiting until you can get it to add the alcohol later?
Yeah, definitely. What's nice is this class, by the way, is also being recorded. So if you want to come back tomorrow or next week or tell a friend that you were on here and want them to check it out, you can always go back to michaels.com and check it out there later. But yeah, you're definitely going to make all the colors really nicely in whatever you're using. Okay. So for this one, what I'm going to do for this first example here today, I'm going to actually just draw right onto this t-shirt. This is the first method. You'll see after we do the three how they all kind of slightly differ away. Now again, this is your time here. This is your opportunity, your 45 minutes or so to just relax and forget all the other noise that's going on right now in the world. Just be here with your Sharpie marker and me, and let's just have some fun. So today I want to choose some blues and purples, again, because those are some of my favorite colors. And I'm just going to create a nice design along the chest area of this t-shirt. If you want to draw stars or different shapes, that's perfectly fine. But as we go along, you'll start to see how this comes together. And it doesn't need to be perfect at all. In fact, you're watching someone that doesn't have a great drawing skills, but I can still make something that I think looks pretty cool because it's for me.
And Jonathan, somebody asked if they need to put anything between the two layers of this shirt.
Yeah, you may want to. It's all personal preference. And this one that I'm doing right now, I'm not. The one that I'm wearing, I did have a piece of cardboard in between the two layers of the t-shirt. And that's, again, going to prevent it from bleeding through. But if you don't mind the bleed and you don't care if it goes through the other side, then don't worry about it. I do have a piece of cardboard down on this table here because I've got butcher block underneath, and it is a permanent marker. I just don't want to, stain that in any way. So the marker will be stopped by the cardboard. So at this point, everyone should have their piece of fabric out, whether it's a tote bag, socks, hopefully they're clean socks, and or a tote bag, and we're just drawing whatever pattern. Please feel free to let me know what colors you're planning to use today. I'd love to hear. And if you have a favorite Sharpie color or something that you love about Sharpie, please also let us know. We'd love to read that out to everyone on the chat. And I'm going to continue sort of this pattern along the way, bringing the colors as close to each other as possible. The closer that you get them, I found that more of the ink will bleed over to the other colors. If you want to keep them a little bit further apart, you can change the effect a little bit as well. So I've done a blue pattern. And now I'm doing a purple. And again, this is not perfect. We're already on fabric. It's not really perfect. But the real exciting part comes when we start to add in the rubbing alcohol. Now, another thing that I found, which is pretty interesting, rubbing alcohol, did not know this. There comes in a couple of different percentages, right? We always just buy rubbing alcohol if we've got a different, like a wound, or if we want to disinfect something. Well, I have two different types of rubbing alcohol here. I have a 70% and a 91%. I definitely find that the higher the percentage of rubbing alcohol, the more bleed you're going to eventually get. Just assuming that's because of the higher percentage. But I'm not a scientist, and I'm not going to claim to know if that's true or not. Going into my...
Hey, Jonathan, we've had a few people ask if you washed your shirt first, or can you just use it straight out of the package?
I used it straight out of the package, tore that puppy open, and just started going on it. I was going to mention this later in the class, but it's always great to mention now. These colors will fade over time. It's just natural. But one thing to do to prevent sort of that fading action from happening is just washing this in cold water by itself at least the first time, and then by itself in the first time, and then going forward always in cold water. Line drying helps as well. You're not putting it in the drying machine. In fact, a lot of the things that I have at home, I dry, just hang them, set it, forget it, because that dryer would be going all the time otherwise. Got this really cool pink. Every Sharpie has its own unique color name. Unfortunately, I don't know all of them, but if you go on to Sharpie.com, you list them all out there. So I got 3 different colors at this point, and I'm thinking I want to add one more and then kind of change up the design a little bit, and then we're going to jump right into showing you how applying the rubbing alcohol will change the effect of the shirt. All right. This is some of my favorite colors. This is like a greenish teal that I'm using now. And would love to see what you're working on. If you want to hold up your artwork, your creations to the camera this afternoon, be great. Love to see them. And just a plug, if you're on social media, Instagram perhaps, and you want to share your creation with us, please tag #MakeItWithMichaels or #Sharpie. We'll check it out, we'll repost it. You'll become Insta famous. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so just finishing up my last color. These kind of look like little mountain peaks. Now, you may get some Sharpie on your hands, that's okay. This is not a very messy activity, but the Sharpie should just come off with some soap and water and some cleaning later on. All right, so I've got my little mountain peaks across the chest area here, and I'm gonna pick my last color. I'm just gonna pick this very cool blue. And I'm gonna do some, a dot, and then some smaller dots around it. Maybe another one here, a big dot. And it's funny, you know, you do this, if you do this over a course of a couple times, you really start to see your personality come out in this work. And you change it up from time to time and see how things have evolved. Pretty cool. And
Hey, Jonathan. We have a quick question. People are asking which markers you're using. Are you using just from a standard pack or a theme pack or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm using Sharpie Fines today, and those come in a variety of packs, which is really nice because if you're someone like me that wants to have a lot of Sharpies around, you can buy some of the larger packs at Michael's. However, if you want just a few, if you know your standard colors, maybe your business-friendly colors, those come in smaller packs as well. So what's really cool is Sharpie has a nice assortment. I think for something like tie-dye, you want to have a nice assortment of bright colors to work with. but it's really up to you. If you have the Sharpie Ultra Fines at home, those will work perfectly fine as well, okay? Now, in my little collection here, I do have some Sharpie Metallics. These are really fun. I haven't been able to really get the bleed to happen with the Sharpie Metallics, but what's cool about using them, and back on my example here, I actually did this earlier, and this is what we're gonna go into next, but I finished it off with just some little dots of Sharpie Silver and Bronze Metallic on it. And that's really cool because it kind of gives it like a little bit of a different effect. It's one step after your tie-dyeing effect. But Sharpie Metallics are really awesome. They come in fine, and I actually have some here. If you don't have these in part of your collection, these Sharpie Chisel, these are newer, awesome addition, work really well on black surfaces. All right, so this is all I want to do with this design right now, because I want to show you a couple other things that we're doing. If you're still working on yours, that's totally cool. Just listen, ask any questions, and let's continue the fun here. So
we have one quick question. A few people have asked if you've had any experience substituting the rubbing alcohol with nail polish remover.
Ooh, I have not. I don't have any nail polish remover in my household, but it's possible that it would work. And I'm not a scientist, but I feel like those two things smell similar, so they probably would work very similar. But if you have it, go ahead and give it a try. Again, this could be, if it's your first time doing this, let's chalk this up to just being a test day or experiment day. You could always do it after the fact at a later point, and if you don't have rubbing alcohol today, buy it in the future. So I have a container here of 91%. I'm actually going to take it out, take the nozzle off this one, and just pour this into just a separate container. If you have a plastic container, that's perfectly fine. And the first way that I'm going to apply the rubbing alcohol is, and I didn't call this out at the beginning, it's probably really hard to see, but these are just little plastic pipettes, okay? They're great for just taking a little bit of liquid out and dispersing it. And what's cool about doing it this way is that we can sort of control where the rubbing alcohol is going, whereas if you were gonna spray it directly on, it's gonna have a wider cast. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of my rubbing alcohol at a time and start applying it to the t-shirt, okay? I'm actually gonna work in reverse of what how I designed it. I'm just gonna start applying to where my little dots were down on the bottom. Now keep in mind, if you saturate with a lot, you're gonna get a lot wider cast of the colors. If you put a little less, it's not gonna bleed as much. So again, personal preference. It's what you wanna do. There's no rules here. It's just gonna be your shirt, your pair of socks, your bag after. Or maybe it's even a gift for someone. I think something like this that's homemade is always done with love, and friends and family always appreciate little cool things like this. So this is really neat. We're starting to see the bleed effect out. And you really don't know what you're gonna get until you start dropping the rubbing alcohol. Very nice. I'm loving this blue. I'm liking the way that it's starting to fan out. In fact, it kind of looks a little bit like some of the ones that I did on the shirt that I'm wearing. It's done a little bit differently. All right. We're gonna call this is gonna be the simple shirt today, because the next one we do will be probably look a little bit more like your traditional tie-dye that you're used to. I'm a child of the 80s, but still did a lot of tie-dyeing as a kid. Now, hopefully, what I want is that these sort of mountain peaks to really bleed. It looks like they will. And I'm just applying a little bit of rubbing alcohol onto the shirt, a little bit at a time. And it's really up to you and how you want to apply it. What I think is cool about doing this way is that the rubbing alcohol, also with rubbing alcohol, the shirt tends to dry really fast. So, you know, having to wait a long, long time isn't something that you're gonna have to do. In fact, I did part of the shirt that I'm wearing right now this morning. I did part of it a week or so ago, and then I wanted to do the arms this morning, and I tried something a little bit different. So again, you're seeing how these colors are bleeding. I did not put the cardboard in between the layers, so it's definitely gonna seep into the back, but I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. So we've got our blue, our purple, our like hot pink coming together. And we'll just keep going until it's finished. Now, I also have Q-tips here. And you could try, Q-tip is the brand, but these things, right? Everyone uses them. You can try dabbing one of these and touching the Sharpie. And I think it kind of controls it a little bit more there. If you're gonna use them though, I would definitely use a different Q-tip for each of the colors, since the ink tends to get onto the swab. Okay. Now, if you recall, I put these colors really close to each other, so they're definitely blending. If I had spaced them out a lot more, would have not experienced all of the bleed that's going into different colors. But again, it's something that I was trying to achieve, and it's coming out here. All right. So to keep things interesting, and just a trivia question for everyone, let's see, how many Sharpie fine colors does everyone think Sharpie has? How many colors? I'll give you a guess. It's under 75. Let us know in the chat. We're looking to know how many fine tip Sharpie colors are there in the marketplace today. And
we're getting a lot of answers. We are getting 72, 56, a lot in the 60s.
Okay.
We got 120.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
60s, 70s are in those areas.
A little lower. There's actually 51 different Sharpie fine colors that we have there. But I feel like there's a color that, you know, can speak to everyone, right? There's something out there for everyone. I really like how this came out. I was getting a little nervous at first, but I'm liking it. And you can still try to control some more bleed. Like I did the blue like 3 minutes ago, yeah. And I'm still able to get a little bleed action. So test with whatever you're using to see if you can get a little bit more bleed if you want to guide the colors a little bit more and see what happens. Yeah, 51 different colors. So there's really something out there for everyone. I cracked my Pipette. No wonder there's nothing coming up in it. I'll have to get a new one in just a second. So here is my first design. I'm going to call this Mountain Overlooking the Water. I don't know. Name your creation and come up with something fun as well, right? But I think that's pretty cool. I like it. It actually kind of reminds me of a brand that I won't mention right now, a clothing brand, but kind of reminds me of something like that. Very like outdoorsy, pretty cool. So that's the first one. That's the first example that we're gonna do today, drawing directly onto a t-shirt or your canvas. Now, the next one that I wanna show you, let's put this one aside. I'm just gonna put it over here. Okay. the next thing I want to show you is how can we repurpose or reuse things that are lying around our house to style or to work on your tie-dye designs here. The tags are not necessary at this point, are they? All right. So, and what I mean by that is you can see on the bag. Actually, we're going to use the bag to do this one. The bag, I have a lot of larger circles, right? And how did I achieve this, right? There's a couple different things you can do, but what I did was I used just glasses that were in my kitchen here to assist with this. So what do I mean by that, right? Here's a blank tote. Again, if you need these, you go to Michael's or order them online. They come in a multi-pack, which is great. If you have families and you want to do this as a group activity, you're home, go ahead and do it. In this situation, I've got a little cardboard here, and what I'm going to do is just pop this on the inside so that I don't get any bleed onto the other side. Just something thick, okay? I've got a couple different glasses here of different diameters. If you're a child, please be careful if you're working with glass, okay? Plastic cup would work, but just be careful with touching glass right now. Don't want anyone to end up injured. So I'm taking this glass and I'm just putting it in my tote bag. And I'm going to take a rubber band. You have a rubber band lying around. I've got a whole slew of them here. And I'm going to figure out, like, where do I want to start a design on this bag? So I'm just going to cup it like that. Okay, I've got a small section with a wine glass here. Stemless wine glass, to be exact. And we're going to get going here. I'm going to change things up. I feel like everyone's seen enough blues and purples, so let's go into some like brighter colors. Let's do some oranges and some yellows. Again, sticking with my Sharpie fine points here. So I'm really just constraining or restricting sort of the design into this small little section here, and we're just going to go section by section, and we're going to apply the rubbing alcohol in a similar way. So I'm going...
And Jonathan, we have two quick questions for you. Somebody asked if they could use this same technique that you're doing right now and using a cookie cutter.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea, definitely. If you have a
and then somebody also asked, sorry, does it bleed when you wash the shirt or the bag or anything like that? I think you said it'll fade, which is typical for tie-dye, but.
So I'm crazy about my laundry. So I don't know if you're crazy about your laundry. I would always just wash something like this at least the first few times by itself so that you don't have anything going on. But after a while, I just say wash it with your whites. It's something I'm sure some of you have those machines that you can't put bleach in your washing machines. So I just use OxyClean when I'm doing my whites. But I always just do them by themselves, so there's no problem. Hopefully that answered the question. You get to know a little bit more about me and how I do laundry. All right, so I'm taking some yellows, taking orange, and I'm gonna get the color as close to the yellow as possible. I want to see that bleed. Here we go, right on the canvas. Some ASMR here going on. All right, and we'll finish it off. Oh, I got two reds in here. Red and black and blue, very popular Sharpie colors. Okay, so we're gonna call this the sun. Okay. Just color right in. There's really, like I said a couple of times now, there's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way to do this. There's just the way to do it is the way to, it's just having fun, really, at this point. Let's go ahead and start applying, with this technique, what we're going to do is just apply a little bit of the rubbing alcohol to each section and then kind of move the cup. But I have the wine glass here, then I've got a wider low ball, and then I've got this cool little glass jar that I'm gonna test out as well to get a nice little design on there. So then in the end, we'll have different circles. So I'm just gonna start from the center and dropping it right into the red. It's bleeding really nicely into the orange. I would love to know where everyone's watching from today and tuning in from. Feel free to put your city in, your state, and Alex can read them off. Alex, let me know. Cool, I like that.
We have a few people from New Jersey and Connecticut, Minnesota, North Carolina. We have someone from Spain.
Very nice.
Alabama, Ohio, Texas.
Hello, Ohio. I have family in Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio.
We have Dubai, Fort Lauderdale, Kentucky, Baltimore.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome to hear you guys are from all over the United States and around the globe, which is really, really awesome. That looks pretty cool. I like that look that we just achieved from that sun. That's really awesome. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and lived in Atlanta for a little time, lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and now I've been in New York for about 4 years. I'm gonna do one more sun over here from the bottom lower left-hand corner. Let's see what we can get with this one, and then I'm gonna change it up a little bit. Yeah, that's awesome that we have such great representation from all over the place, which I think is really cool because just shows that I think like Sharpie is really a beloved like product and brand that is in every household. In fact, I learned recently that at the end of 2002, I have it written here, there were 200 million Sharpies that had been produced, which at the time was enough for every household in the United States to have 2 Sharpies each. Clearly, it's been quite a while since then, and I think we need to update our stats a little bit more, but that is an impressive number. You go into most homes and everyone's got a black Sharpie fine. Okay.
Hey, Jonathan, we have a question. Somebody asked if you could start with applying the alcohol and then play with the Sharpies on top of that.
So one thing that I've tried, I haven't applied it, let's do it today that way. We're doing it after this one. I haven't applied it like that. What I have done is I've applied and then put more, I've done the Sharpie, applied, then done more Sharpie, and still gotten the effect to happen. I like this one. Yeah, this is cool. That bright, like yellow. It's like a little egg yolk in the center. Okay. But yeah, let's give that an opportunity to, or like, let's give it a try. Why not? Cool.
And then somebody also asked after we do this technique, if you could show how you did the one in the top right on the blue bag with the lines coming out of it.
Sure. So I'll get to that one. Yeah, totally. Just a second. I think, are you talking about this one? I'm not sure if it was this one.
One above it, sorry. One all the way at the top right. Yeah.
We're upside down here. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We got some really cool. I'm all by myself here. You wouldn't believe the setup that we have to do this today. It's kind of funny. Okay, so we said let's do the rubbing alcohol, and then try the. Let's do this glass actually. Then put on the Sharpie, right? Cool. Okay, so rubber band. And in this case, why don't we, it's like science class over here. I haven't been in school in a while. Let's give it a try. What do we think's gonna happen? Does everyone think it's going to work? Let Alex know. Alex loves reading all these answers. Okay, so I saturated it there. What's everyone thinking, Alex? Is it gonna happen?
I don't know.
Okay.
We haven't gotten too many yet. I think people are waiting for you to test it first.
See what's happening. Make sure that's not a dry one. That's an older one. Yeah, so see what's happening is it's not bleeding at all. In fact, the Sharpie's really not even hitting it. So we have proved today that putting the rubbing alcohol on first is not going to work that well. Okay. To do what I did over here though, all that was it was just very similar, but I changed and I actually just drew some patterns. I believe that's what I did. Let's get it away from the rubbing alcohol. So I was doing some lines. Like this. Rather than before, which was the solid. And if you do it like this, so let's put some red there, with some red dots. And you don't, for that, like want to get the colors too close to each other, leave a little space. And then it should work out where you get something like that, where you've got some more like rays. Let's see if that works out here. Oops, let's go cut that.
And we've had a few people ask if you can show the spray alcohol as well on one of them.
What'd you say?
We had a few people ask if you could show the spraying technique with the alcohol as well in your spray bottle.
Yeah. So there's the pipette, and then I've got, I might have to do another little one here. Let's give this a try. It works about the same, but you're definitely covering a lot more of the space. So I think what's nice about having the pipette is that it definitely, you know, you're controlling where you're working, which is pretty cool. So I did straight lines, but if you want to do triangles, you want to do circles, you want to do squiggles, go ahead and do that. So again, the intent with this way of doing things was just kind of using different surfaces or glasses, different shapes to kind of stay within the boundaries, or you can always just draw right onto the actual product that you're working with. So we have time for one more different way to tie-dye with the Sharpies, and this is probably going to be what is most similar to everyone and getting sort of that all over effect and scrunching the shirt up and going to town on it. So let's take a white t-shirt, and I'm not using any of the cardboard at this point because I want it to be on as much of the t-shirt as possible, the final finished product. I'm a proponent of cleaning as we go, so excuse me while I do that. All right, so I've got a t-shirt here. Doesn't matter if it's upside down or whatever. But what I want to do is I'm going to need rubber bands for this. But I'm just going to take from the center. You can twist it however you want. There's a million and one different ways to achieve a design here. But I'm just going to twist into a tight ball, as tight as possible. Actually, I've seen you can use a fork to kind of twist it like spaghetti if you want. No right way, wrong way to do it, whatever works. Ultimately, it's just gonna change the effect of the shirt in the end, or the tie-dye job that you do. Okay, make sure I don't pop any rubber bands in my face. So all I'm doing is just taking this wad of a t-shirt and putting different rubber bands around it. This way of doing things will probably be like the longest. So this will be the last thing we do. And I think it's pretty cool. Actually did this effect on the arms of this t-shirt today by just taking the arms and scrunching them up. In this case, what we're doing is doing the tie-dye effect on the entire t-shirt. Okay, so I've got a t-shirt, just a big wadded mess of a t-shirt at the moment, right? Nothing great about that, but it's nice and tight. And at this point, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take out many different Sharpies that you have in your collection, and we're gonna just start filling in the different sections. And one thing that I like to do, if you can stick to it, is doing a different color in each of the different sections where the rubber bands are. That'll give you, I think, a cool different effect. We haven't used green yet today, have we? So let's do green. All right, so I am just going to paint or draw the Sharpie onto the different sections of the shirt. So I'm in the Northeast. I'm looking at the screen right now thinking it's middle of September. Fall is around the corner here. It's gonna hit with a vengeance soon, and then winter, and the green will be the last thing I see until probably, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, we know that the green won't be back until what, May? So let's enjoy it while we have it. Do some green. I'm gonna do green in a bunch of different sections on this shirt. Okay. And I'll just go over here. Let me know if there's a specific color that you'd like me to use. Happy to take some guidance from the class. You can make it a class shirt here after green.
We're getting a few pinks.
Cool. Sure.
And purple.
Okay. We're back to the pink and purple. I've got 2 pinks. I love it. Yeah, I think these will look really nice together. Also, I failed to mention this at the beginning of the class, but today is National Coloring Day. So it's part of the reason why we're doing this with Michaels. A really fun partnership. And I sat on the Prismacolor call for a little while, and one of our designers from Kalamazoo, Michigan, took everyone through a coloring lesson using Prismacolor colored markers and colored pencils, which was really, really neat to watch. So if you missed it, you can definitely check it out on michaels.com. Now, again, I'm just coloring in the pink here. I'm not really concerned with staying in any lines, or no one's going to be giving me a grade after this. It's what I want to do, and I really don't know how this is going to look at the end. And I think that's, again, really part of the fun. Let's switch it up to this like really soft purple. It's what you want it to be. Okay. Did anyone
Jonathan,
go ahead,
sorry,
yeah.
we've had a few questions asking how you get the colors to set. Is that just letting them dry once you've completely sprayed the alcohol on them?
Yeah, they're not bleeding at all. Like, I did this one this morning and I have not washed it yet. I wanted to make sure I was dressed up appropriately for the class today. They are set, but I'm definitely gonna wash it tonight. Like I said, in cold water, no bleach, no hot water. You don't want it running, any of the colors accidentally running, but it should be set just fine after. And what's cool is when we take these rubber bands, we're gonna be able to take the rubber bands off right away today. And we don't, like, it's been a little while since I've done like traditional tie-dyeing, but I always remember having to like sit and let the shirt dry with the rubber bands on it. That's not really necessary here, so if you're kind of in a time crunch, which I feel like we all have time right now, you know, you can just take out the rubber bands right away and go with it. Okay. Man, I'm being really good. I don't really have anything on my hands, which is awesome. You're looking at, if you're klutzy, I'm probably klutzier than you. So, which is sometimes challenging for me. All right, let's add a little bit more here. I want to be finish up pretty soon here. Another interesting fact, you know, I have a lot of family that often ask, like, where are Sharpies made, right? Where's the home of the Sharpie? So Shelbyville, Tennessee, if you're in Tennessee, let Alex know. You probably know where Shelbyville is. That's the official home of Sharpie. It's where a lot of them are produced. And it's a pretty cool thing to see, to be able to go into those factories and watch these products get made. A lot of people just very passionate about the brand and get to work on it on a daily basis, which is pretty awesome. Got anyone from Shelbyville? I'm gonna assume not, but if we do, that's awesome.
We do have a few people from Tennessee, but no one has called out that they're from Shelbyville specifically yet.
Last time I was in Tennessee, I think it's called Gatlinburg, and went to Dollywood. I think that's where it is, or it's in an area near there. That was a few years ago. And someone said they're from Fort Lauderdale earlier. Was back in Fort Lauderdale right before the pandemic started. My last chance in the sun. Okay, so just a couple more spots, and then we're gonna wrap this one up here. Just gonna choose this purple. I haven't chosen this one. Finding it hard to find spots where I haven't gone in yet. Now this is definitely gonna have a lot of white, and I'm okay with that. I'm assuming it's gonna have a lot of white based off of if I've got a lot of open spots still. I'm searching, like, where do I wanna go? And it's really important because remember, you're not soaking this in a dye, so you really got to get into all those like nooks and crannies as best as possible so that you really get that effect on all sides of the product. And again, you can do this with a t-shirt, you can do this with socks, it really doesn't matter. You can do it with any sort of medium. You've got a bag, you could be doing this with the bag right now. Just need your rubber bands. Hair bands might also work fine, but they might not get as tight. So rubber bands, definitely suggest those. All right, last color here. I'm just gonna put a little bit more green in here, and then we're gonna start getting to work. Now with this one, everyone, I love that. I'm loving these greens. Love it. Or the green that we have in here, I should say. With this, let's cap these up. Also, side note, sometimes it's good with Sharpies, always pay attention to like the packaging. Sometimes Sharpies, there's certain ones that we sell that the way that you store them is really important so you can prevent drying. I've got them all tip up right now, or they tip up, but sometimes tip down. I think for some of our metallics is best, so then they won't get dried out. So let's go ahead and take our spray bottle and let's start just spraying the t-shirt. This will actually be faster. Oh, that's really cool. I wish you guys were here with me so you could see this, how these are like up close, how these are starting to come together. I really want to get this to saturate and get the colors nicely bleeding.
And Jonathan, we had a quick question. I know we're working on the t-shirt right now, but we had a few people ask which technique you used on the shoes, asking if you had done all of the Sharpie first and then sprayed it with alcohol, and what kind of technique you used there.
With the shoes, it's interesting. So Alex, actually, who's on the phone speaking, sent me these shoes. And when I did it, this was the first thing that I did. I actually, I drew right onto the shoe, and then I used a lower percentage rubbing alcohol. I'm using the 91 right now. And what I noticed, and I told Alex this like a week or so ago, I was like, I didn't get as much bleed as I thought was gonna happen. But now that I look at it, then in comparison to something like this, they're like two totally different effects. And I don't dislike it at all. I think it's just something that if you want less of a bleed, definitely choose a lower, I don't know how many different types of rubbing alcohols there are. I'm gonna guess just two, but who knows? Go with something a little bit lower to get less of a bleed, because we're definitely getting the bleed action right now on this shirt. And I'm moving as quickly as possible here, just making sure that I've got all these different areas soaked. But this will dry really quickly. And I know everyone's like anxiously waiting to see what this looks like in the end. Okay. I actually have 3 bottles of rubbing alcohol here, just in case we ran out. Now, if, like I mentioned, we are going to be doing these classes for a couple of weeks, and I would love to connect. I know that we still have a few more minutes here, but I'd love to connect with you guys. If you want to connect offline, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I'm gonna have extra product that I'd love to send out to a fan at some point. So just reach out and send me a photo of your final creation and let me know what you love, because I live in a tiny New York City apartment and can't have all this product around. So I think I've saturated it enough at this point, right? So you can immediately take off these rubber bands. Let me just rinse my hand real quick. Paper towel. Yeah, you can start taking the rubber bands off. And we're gonna see what we have underneath. Okay. See if I can do this without snapping a rubber band in my face. Like I said, I'm a little clumsy. Okay, starting to come apart. Great. Smells a little bit, but that's just the alcohol. And that smell actually goes away quite quickly, I found. And if you are using rubber bands, don't throw them away. They're still fine. Don't want to add anything into the trash that you can always reuse. Okay, let's see what we have. Really cool design on the shoulder area. Empty in the center. I'm okay with that. Kind of like this bottom part here. And what's cool is you can also just go back if there was an area that we didn't get because it didn't, we weren't able to penetrate it with the marker. Just go back and scrunch up a new section. So just do it right here. And you can always hit it again. I have a couple more minutes here, so I'm just going to show you guys real quickly. And that's kind of happened with the shirt that I'm wearing right now. Like I wanted to do one effect and then tried something different, kind of like finessing it a little bit more. So let's go back and add. And we would just go like that, adding some colors, moving very quickly right now. But you know, if you do this, if you're doing this at home, no need to rush along, take your time, finish it at a later point. Cool. And again, everyone, these classes are being recorded. You'll find it online tomorrow. So feel free to go back if there was something that wasn't clear, if you wanted to learn a little bit more about. Just gonna add in the green here, a couple spots, and then take it off, spray it and take it off. And really nice. So then we should have something in the center. And this last color here. I love these like pinks and purples. The colors are just always so vibrant, really, and especially on like a white shirt. So good job to everyone that told me to choose them. Appreciate that. Let that sit for a second. Cap these back up. Okay, there we go. Let's take these off and just check it out. So now we have something in the center. Awesome. Well, everyone, I have thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with you today. I know it's a Monday, but what a better way to just start the week off with just chilling and having some fun with Sharpie markers and tie-dyeing some things around the house. Really appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Like I said, feel free to tag tonight. Take a photo of your work. Hashtag make it with Michaels or hashtag Sharpie. Our social team will be all over it. They'd love to see it and repost it. And feel free to connect with me. We'd love to connect offline and answer any questions you guys may have. Make sure that you sign up for our hand lettering class on September 28th, same time. Ceramic watercolors, coasters, excuse me, on 10/5. And then on 9/21, skipped over that one, our Sharpie ceramic decoration. Some of our other colleagues from the brand will be teaching the 21st and the 28th class, and I'll be back on October 5th. But with that, I will give you the rest of your afternoons back. I appreciate your time and support, and have a fantastic day. Bye.